Hello and thank you for joining me for episode number 13 of Going Life's Longevity Weekly with me, Chris Cohen. Now this is a show where I give you all the news and updates from the world of longevity and with what we've been looking at over the past couple of days. So this week we are talking about the global trends that we're going to see in our lifetime. I'll chat with Jay Johnson, one of the first people to undergo gene therapy, and also the role that blood plays in aging. So without further ado, please sit back and enjoy. Our world is a very different place to how it was even just a few years ago, and this rapid pace of change is only just speeding up. So what are some of the major changes that we might see in the world over the course of our lifetimes? Now the first one is the evolution of the world's population demographics. Now initially the population will continue to rise as it still is at the moment. In August 2011, the world's population officially surpassed 7 billion and is expected to reach 9.3 billion by 2050. Yet at this point, the population of people over the age of 65 will vastly exceed those under the age of 5 years old. This is not a consequence of overpopulation, but rather a result of a jaw-dropping decline in birth rates across the globe, coupled with a steady increase in life expectancy. What will follow is a rapid decline in population size. And we can see this start to happen already in countries such as Japan and Italy. Now it is estimated that 23 countries are expected to see their populations halve by the end of the century. Japan is amongst them, and this graph shows the forecast effects of age demographics. Now how these evolving population demographics will begin to shape the geopolitical landscape will be absolutely fascinating to see. Now secondly, advances in biotechnology are creating new opportunities in agriculture, medicine, they're creating ethical challenges and shifting our relationship with the environment. With gene editing technology, we can now talk directly to the cell in the language of DNA, allowing for precise tuning of protein production. GM crops are already allowing the food to be grown in areas where plants would not normally flourish. Microorganisms can be engineered to synthesize drugs, degrade plastics, or even act as microscopic computers. Now, biotechnology is likely to touch many aspects of our lives, but just as with every revolutionary technology, it brings its own set of concerns and new problems. Thirdly, artificial intelligence is becoming increasingly sophisticated and widespread in its application. The use of AI in both public and private sectors is becoming commonplace. Whereas once AI was limited to tasks with a clearly defined set of rules and boundaries, such as chess, thanks to the development of more advanced artificial neural networks and machine learning, AI has made leaps and bounds towards doing things that typically only humans could do. AI can now write fiction, paint paintings, and even debate politics. However, perhaps the greatest strength of current AI is its ability to handle vast amounts of data, allowing us to detect trends and relationships that would otherwise not be possible, such as detecting subtle disease signs and discovering new drugs. The advancement of AI poses both existential risks, but also existential opportunity. It will be crucial in coming years to make sure we manage this appropriately. And finally, global migration is on the rise. Today, the number of individuals living in a country other than that in which they were born is 270 million, close to double what it was in 1990. And migration is not only beneficial, but necessary to the global economy, and will become increasingly important in the future due to population ageing and the ageing nations being reliant on immigrant workers to help prop up the growing elderly populations. Unfortunately, the negative impacts of immigration are often focused and highlighted in the media. Appropriately weighing up these pros and cons should be our focus for the future, to avoid heavy restrictions on migration that only harm economies and perpetuate global inequality. Now secondly was my interview with one of the first genetically altered human beings, Jay Johnson. Jay was diagnosed with HIV in 1991, at a time when we really didn't know much about the disease, and having it was heavily stigmatised. Now in 2007, Jay entered into one of the first ever in-human trials which aimed to edit the CCR5 gene, rendering the HIV virus unable to actually enter into the human cells. People born with this mutation have a natural resistance to HIV. In our discussion, we talked about the future of gene therapies and his experiences on the trial. So here's a short clip for you. Do you think this sort of technology has the potential to revolutionize treatments for chronic diseases.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's amazing what science can do today. And I do believe studies such as the CCR5 receptor are going to be very instrumental in helping with not only HIV, but many other diseases. Just look at the vaccine that was developed in such a short time for the coronavirus. Yeah, science is amazing.
But considering you had maybe not the best experience on your gene therapy trial, would you ever consider participating in another trial?
Absolutely, yeah. Like I said, the worst experience was getting the transfusion back in, but even that would not deter me from entering into another study if it was offered to me.
So that was just a short clip of what was a really fascinating interview. And thanks again to Jay, he really is an inspiration. And if you want to go and check out the full video, I'll leave the link in the description below. And finally, what sort of role does blood have in ageing? Well, the evidence of the link between blood and ageing goes back to the 1950s. But the study that really kicked off the field was published in 2005. Professor Irina Conboy and her colleagues connected the circulatory system of a young mouse and an old mouse using a technique called parabiosis. They found that the procedure reversed signs of ageing in muscle and liver tissue in the older mouse. These results were replicated by the repeated infusion of young blood into the circulatory system of the older mouse. This demonstrated that there must be some sort of young blood factors conveying a rejuvenating effect. The scientists then asked if the reverse is true. Will transfusing old blood into young mice make them age faster? And yes, lo and behold, they found that this was indeed what happened. But most surprisingly, it was found that simply diluting these aging factors in old mice by injecting a saline solution of albumin produced very similar rejuvenating effects in the old mice. So this begs the question, were young blood factors really responsible for the rejuvenation seen in the first parabiosis experiments? Or did the sharing of blood simply dilute the older animals' old blood factors? It's likely that these theories are not mutually exclusive, and given the evidence, it seems likely that both young factors and aging factors have a role to play. However, it is beginning to look as if aging factors may play the more important role. Now, in terms of what this means for humans, clinical trials have produced promising results for the use of plasma factors in the treatment of age-related diseases, and young blood factors may yet prove to be effective. So that is it for another week of Longevity Weekly. Thank you so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed it. If you want to find out more, go and check out the Gowing Life website, where we've got some really interesting articles, including 30 things that we learned in March, how metformin is impacting cardiovascular health, and how astrocyte dysfunction might have a pivotal role in Alzheimer's disease. So go and check it out, and I will see you next week. Thank you very much.